The Xbox Series X hits store shelves on November 10th, and today I'm going to give you my full impressions of Microsoft's next-gen offering.
Team Canada.
Hey, what's going on, guys? SeeJayAre here today with a impressions video of the Xbox Series X. I've had this in my possession now for just over a week and a half or so, and I've been playing a ton of games. I've gone through, I think, 3 to 4 sets of batteries in that new controller, so I've had some extensive hands-on time and feel confident that I can give you guys my full impressions on the Xbox Series X. Now, if you are looking for in-depth technical specifications on the hardware, games, how they look, this may not be the place to get that. I would suggest you go over to somewhere like Digital Foundry. They've been doing a fantastic job of highlighting all the technical aspects of the Xbox Series X, how well games are running. A lot of the games that I played are still under embargo, so I can't go too in-depth into the games, but I will speak a bit about the launch lineup on day one. So the first thing I wanted to touch on with this impression slash review was the actual design of the console itself. Now, if you didn't see my unboxing video, I'll put it in the card here or here, I always forget. So you can go check that out, where I kind of show off the physical console and the controller. But like, this is a pretty compact unit considering what's inside. Hats off to the R&D and the development team and the engineers at Microsoft for being able to pack everything and that much power into this small of a unit. I'm really impressed with the form factor. I actually love the design. I'm somebody that likes a clean, minimalistic design in pretty much everything. I don't like anything to be big and flashy. It fits fantastic in my entertainment unit. I was a little bit worried about that with this new console generation. Unfortunately, I can't use it in the vertical orientation, which is how I think it should be displayed. But when it comes to looks and size of like the function of this unit, Microsoft did a fantastic job. This is an extremely well-designed console. Now, in terms of my experience with the console itself, it's extremely quiet. It didn't really get super hot for me. I did check it once in a while. I made sure that in my entertainment unit that the back was open. That's something that you definitely want to do. You don't want to put this in a confined space. You want to make sure that there is space between the fan and your entertainment unit. I think I had 8 to 10 inches of room there, so it seemed to be totally fine. But really impressed with how silent this console was. Even when I was playing a pretty graphic intensive game, I never heard the fan kick on. It was very, very quiet. Moving on to the controller. This, in my opinion, is the best Xbox controller ever. Now, I spoke a little bit in my previous video about my love for the Xbox controllers and how the controller has evolved and been refined over multiple generations. This controller is slightly smaller, although I do not really notice it in my hands. I've got fairly large hands, and I actually, it fits quite comfortable. Big fan of the new D-pad, the clicky D-pad that I mentioned in my last video. Much better and better than other competitors' D-pad in my opinion. I'm a huge fan of the staggered sticks. I think it's a much more natural position for most games. On other controllers, the stick is parallel and the D-pad is prominently featured up here, which is a little bit strange to me. So I've always kind of preferred the staggered configuration. The new share button is great. I actually used that a couple times to record some clips you can easily share to your social networks, so appreciate that. Triggers feel great. I love the grip on the controller. Really help from keeping your hands get sweaty as well as having better grip on the controller. So the controller is definitely a step up from the last gen's controller on the Xbox One. However, I love that Microsoft has allowed you to use your previous generation's controllers on the Xbox Series X and Series S. Absolutely love that they did that. Huge move for the consumers. I can use my favorite controllers from the Xbox One. I've got a white one that I really love. And you don't need to go out and spend $70, $80 on secondary controllers if you already have them. So I absolutely love that they did that. Love the controller, USB-C. Yeah, It's fantastic. I will speak to the latency. The latency seems noticeably better on this controller, and maybe it's the console that has a lot to do with that as well. I'm sure it is. I actually just saw a Digital Foundry video on some of the technologies that they're using to negate controller input lag. So fantastic when it comes to that. Now, next up, I want to talk a little bit about the user interface. Now, the user interface is essentially the same as it was on the Xbox One previous console generation, or Xbox One S or X, depending on which console you had. So there definitely have been some refinements over the previous generation. It is certainly way faster. I will preface this by saying that I had an Xbox One X, so I was experiencing the best of what Xbox had to offer in terms of user interface and how well it performed previously, and it's a noticeable increase from the Xbox One X to the Series X. So fantastic, pretty minimal. A little bland, but that's the way I like it. It functions well. I know how to use it. I know where everything is. I know how to find everything. It is a great user interface, although, you know, it's a bit plain. I will give it that. But it serves its function. I can get to things that I want to get to quickly, especially on the Series X. Super snappy. I wanted to quickly touch on the loading times on the Series X. They are absolutely fantastic, as I'm sure a lot of you have heard. Again, sites like Digital Foundry have done a fantastic job of highlighting just how fast the Series X will load games. Now, I've tried all sorts of games from multiple generations, going back to the original Xbox through the 360 and Xbox One, and a huge jump in loading times. Now, I've heard a lot of people say, and I experienced this myself, I think we've all just gotten kind of used to when there's a loading screen, okay, it's time to quickly check Instagram, or, you know, sometimes games will give you those tips. This console is loading so fast that you barely have time in most instances to read those tips. So that might be something that kind of disappears and goes by the wayside. So loading times, blazingly fast on this console. I guess right now I'll touch on backwards compatibility. As I said, you can play hundreds, I think up to 1,000, pretty close to 1,000 backwards compatible games. I think there's something like 500 or 600 360 games. So as I said, I've got a massive 360 original Xbox lineup of games that I can test out on this console. And that is one of the major selling points right now for this console, especially at launch, being able to play your back catalog of Xbox titles. And for me, that is absolutely huge. I can put away my 360, I can put away my Xbox One, and just solely play all my Xbox content on the Series X. So I absolutely love that. So you've also got Quick Resume. Now, Quick Resume worked on a good amount of titles during my time with the console, but there is updates still coming out, and there will be updates coming before you see the console on store shelves on November 10th. But for the ones that it's currently working for, Quick Resume is fantastic. So I can be playing a game like Gears of War and be in the campaign, and then hop right out if I feel like doing a quick race on Forza Horizon, just for instance, or hop over to a puzzle game. I haven't tried that yet. I'm excited to try out some Tetris Effect on the Series X, but I just love being able to bounce around to games. So say you got stuck somewhere in a game and you just kind of want to come back to maybe like a puzzle in a puzzle platformer game like Tomb Raider or something like that, where you're just kind of stumped and you just kind of want to get some mental separation. You hop over and play a puzzle game. You can quickly hop back into another game, and it's a feature that I didn't think I was going to use as much as I did, but absolutely fantastic there. Really enjoying the Quick Resume, and again, blazing fast. So kind of tying into backwards compatibility, we've got one of the main selling points for the Xbox series of consoles, and that is Game Pass. Game Pass is a fantastic service, an absolute must-own if you end up picking up the Xbox series of consoles. Hundreds of games that you can download and play. Original or first-party Microsoft games are available on day one. So if you're considering buying a game like Halo, it makes a lot of sense just to get the Game Pass because it'll be there for you to play day one. A huge catalog of other titles as well with the Bethesda acquisition. We've got a lot of Bethesda games in there now. We've got Doom is in there now. Doom Eternal, I've had a lot of fun playing that. So you can play a ton of games for a relatively low cost. It includes Xbox Live, and for Game Pass Ultimate, you also get Xbox Live, I should say, and that's what I have, and I think it's around $16 Canadian per month, which is a fantastic value. So I've been able to play a whole bunch of titles from Xbox One, 360, original Xbox are all included with the Game Pass. The selection is outstanding, and in my opinion, like I said, it's one of the main selling points. So I think we need to talk about the launch lineup of games. Now, in my opinion, it's not great. Now, the pandemic has a lot to do with that. A lot of games were pushed and delayed, and it's kind of impressive that Microsoft was actually still even able to get these consoles out before the holiday season. That's kind of thrown a monkey wrench into a lot of things. So I'm going to give them a bit of a pass there. That's kind of where I think Game Pass comes in. So it really kind of boosts that launch lineup, and you're able to re-experience some games that you maybe have played before or haven't had the chance to play. Games like Forza Horizon 4, Gears of War, they're getting graphical upgrades and better frame rates, better graphical fidelity, that sort of thing. Launching day one, so you can go back and experience those. And then there's a couple of games like Dirt and Yakuza that I'm excited to play those. I've been playing them a little bit. I can't say too much other than that. But not a great lineup in terms of having that one killer app that's a big time console seller. As we all know, Halo got pushed back. So Game Pass is going to be a really important service for Xbox in this launch window. So I think the next question is, what kind of value are you getting, and should you buy this console on launch? Now, if you're somebody that, if you weren't able to get into pre-order, I guess that is what it is. I know pre-orders were tough and extremely limited, and I think that if you don't have a pre-order right now, you may have to wait until after Christmas to get your hands on one of these. Or if you're somebody that, it's an expensive console. If you're somebody that needs to save up your pennies to purchase the console, like I usually put aside an envelope, throw some money in it like 6 months ahead, and then I've got my next gen envelope of money to go towards the console, and that's how I usually do it. So if you're somebody that can't quite come up with the funds yet or haven't been able to pre-order one, I totally understand that. I will say that if you're somebody who's been on the fence and that you're like, well, maybe I'll wait 3 to 6 months. I think if you're going to wait that time, it makes sense just to get it now. And like I said, unless pre-ordering or money is the issue. And experience a lot of those games that you maybe didn't get a chance to play through Game Pass. There's a lot of great experiences right now, instead of just waiting for that one killer app to come out before you purchase the console. But I also totally understand if you're the person that wants to wait a year for maybe like a price drop or more bigger titles to come out. But I would encourage people who are on the fence about buying it down the road to pick it up now and take advantage of the Game Pass. That's kind of what I would do. I'm a bit of a different case. I always love having the newest, latest, and best consoles. I love graphical upgrades. So I love getting these things day one. I will also say, touching on graphics, this is not this is not one of the leaps that we've seen in like the 90s, early 2000s, where you're going from, where you're changing generations, and it is like night and day difference in terms of graphics. Where you're gonna see improvements on this console are moving up to 4K fidelity, 4K visuals, and then moving into things like higher frame rate. Now, you also have to have a TV to take advantage of that. I just picked up a Sony X900H, which I will probably do a review on at some point, and that has up to 120 hertz capabilities. So I was able to test some software that took advantage of higher frame rates at higher resolution. So running games at 4K 60 and some games at a little bit lower resolution, but up to 120 frames per second. And that's something that's pretty impressive. Like I said, if you have the TV that will take advantage of it. But don't expect to see a, twice as good graphics as you did with the Xbox consoles. Now, once again, I am moving from the Xbox One X to the Series X. So it won't be as big of a leap as somebody who is on an original Xbox making the jump to the Series X. You're going to notice a big leap there. So because I already had Xbox's most powerful console, the previous generation, the leaps are less substantial. But this thing will run games beautifully at higher frame rates, which is absolutely fantastic. I expect the Xbox Series X to be my lead console for this generation, much like the One X was last time. And I'll play other consoles like PlayStation and Nintendo just kind of for the exclusives. Cross-platform titles will be played on the Series X to maximize graphics and frame rate, because this is the most powerful console of this generation. Anyways, guys, I hope you've enjoyed my impressions of the Xbox Series X. Let me know in the comments below if you've got one pre-ordered or if you're planning to pick one up down the road. Thanks for watching as always, and till the next episode.